Hello, my name is Tony, and I'm inviting you, the viewer, to join me on a journey of discovery where we uncover the truth about employment law and answer your questions. Are you ready? Hello and welcome to another episode of Employment Law. The truth is out there. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host Alison from Real Employment Law Advice. Alison, how are you this fine morning?
I feel really good today. Thank you, Tony.
Fab and fantastic.
Yes.
Me too. And we've got a great question in today. And this question has come from Kate from Essex. And she says, OMG, I can't believe it. I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do. Help. So there's a few things in there, Alison.
Yes.
So can you speak to our viewers about what you need to do and what your rights are in relation to pregnancy?
Okay, so if Kate's just found out that she's pregnant, she doesn't have to tell her employer immediately that she is pregnant.
Okay.
However, it does depend on her job role as to the timing of telling her employer. My advice is always, at the earliest opportunity, the time that you feel most comfortable, tell your employer that you're pregnant for health and safety reasons, just to make sure that your employer understands if there's any risks in relation to you or your unborn child. Your employer should have undertaken a general risk assessment, which includes the risk to pregnant and new mothers. But if they haven't done that, or your role has a particular risk, then it's a good time to get that risk assessment in place and look at any risks to you and your baby.
Okay, so the next question I've got is, what happens if Kate becomes ill during her pregnancy? Can she have time off work?
Yes. If she becomes ill during her pregnancy, then she should take time off in the same way she would if she was sick. Otherwise, she has additional protection. So if she is off at various periods or for a long time because of her pregnancy sickness, then her employer shouldn't use that against her in any sort of sickness management process.
Okay, and can she have time off for going to the antenatal classes?
Yes, there is a time off for antenatal classes, and hopefully your employer has a policy in place that covers this. If they don't, then you should have a chat to them and make arrangements. Often they will ask for your appointment card or details about your antenatal classes before allowing you the time off, or they might ask for it afterwards for their records. But yes, you can have time off to attend
Brilliant.
those kind of classes.
Okay, so that's, I suppose, leading up to actually having the baby. But when, then, in my head, when can Kate go off on maternity leave, or what is maternity leave?
Okay, so maternity leave, any employee has an entitlement to maternity leave. So you don't have to have been employed for a particular length of time to be able to have that time off.
So it starts straight away?
Yeah, so if somebody became pregnant immediately or before they
Like
start
1 week
work,
after even before starting work?
yes, then they're entitled to have leave. Okay, so it's up to 52 weeks leave for any employee. So there's no qualifying time you have to be employed for that.
And what would we get paid for that?
So if you have been employed for 26 weeks at the 15th week before your baby's due, then you're entitled to statutory maternity pay, which is paid by your employer. And that is paid at 90% of your earnings for the first 6 weeks. And then it's the statutory amount, which is about £151.97, I think.
I'm sure it changes.
It does change every April, but it's about £151 a week for the next 33 weeks. So that's statutory maternity pay. You have to have an average earnings of £120 a week to qualify for that.
Okay.
If you haven't got the length of service, so if you haven't been with your employer for 26 weeks at the 15th week before your baby's due, then you would qualify for maternity allowance, which you apply straight to the government for. And the difference is you don't get that 90% that you get with statutory maternity pay. So there is still pay there, even if you don't qualify from your employer. You just have to go about it a different way, and it's slightly less for the first 6 weeks.
Okay, so in my head now, I'm thinking we've gone through the pregnancy and the baby's born. Is Kate's job safe?
Yes, is the general position. So maternity leave is split into two halves. There's 26 weeks ordinary maternity leave and 26 weeks additional maternity leave. And if you go into additional maternity leave, there's more flexibility around your employer changing your job role, than there is if you're off on ordinary maternity leave. But it has to be sort of exceptional circumstances that you can't return to your ordinary job role at the end of your maternity leave.
Okay, so if Kate, after her maternity leave, decides she does want to go back, but instead of working full-time, she wants to work part-time, what does she need to do?
Okay, so if she wants to change her hours, then she would need to make a flexible working request to her employer. And this can be done in two ways. One, it can be done informally, so by way of an informal discussion with your manager or your boss or employer, and then they can agree that. Or alternatively, going down the formal route of a flexible working application. And your employer should have a process in place for this, or there is a prescriptive process to follow. So you basically have to put it in writing, setting out what you want, etc. But there is no obligation on an employer to allow you to go back to work part-time. Now, often employers will, but there isn't any requirement, which I think lots of people kind of misunderstand actually, or they don't really realise when they get towards the end of their maternity leave and they want to go back part-time. They make that application and then suddenly the employer's saying no. They don't realise that their options then are returning to work full-time or leaving altogether, which is a shame, but often, employers can't accommodate part-time working for whatever reason.
So how can you help Kate then? At what point is it going to be necessary for Kate to speak to you?
Well, hopefully, in most employees' pregnancy journey, they won't need to have legal advice and it will run smoothly. Sometimes employers, if they're not experienced with employees with pregnancy and maternity, may not know what their obligations are. But the .gov website has all the information in both a format for you as the employee and also for the employer. So if you are struggling or your employer doesn't really understand what your entitlements are, then you can direct them to the .gov website, which gives the up-to-date information in a clear and easy way, so hopefully they won't need to get legal advice. But if a dispute arises or there's a problem for any reason, then Kate should get advice really quickly. With employment rights, the time limit for making claims or pursuing your rights is very limited. It's only 3 months to make that claim really, or to start the process. And what I find with employees who are suffering from pregnancy discrimination or maternity discrimination, it's because they're preoccupied with pregnancy and obviously with a new baby, which is understandable. They kind of let things go on, and then suddenly as they're feeling better about things or it's time to return to work, they'll get advice, and by then their claims may be out of time. So it's really important to get advice at the earliest opportunity.
Brilliant.
One of the times, Tony, that things can arise and problems can arise is if the employer makes changes while someone's on maternity leave. Either they make redundancies or they offer a promotion or anything like that going on during the work, during their pregnancy and maternity leave. That's the time when I found in the past that claims can arise and people don't really understand their rights. So it's really important to stay in touch with your employer, to maintain contact, and if you think something isn't right, then get some advice as soon as you can.
I think that's the key message there, because it is such a long journey and it could be virtually 2 years between the starting and coming back into work, and anything can happen. So if it doesn't feel right, I think it's best just to contact someone like yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on the defence of employers again here, sometimes employers just don't understand what their legal obligations are. The law changes fairly frequently, and sometimes your employer might seem like they're being obstructive, but it might just be that they're not well informed. So it might be that you have to inform them, unfortunately, of what your rights are and what their responsibilities are. So I would always advocate good communication throughout pregnancy and maternity, and hopefully that will resolve any issues.
Thanks for that, Alison. That was brilliant as always. And remember, guys, here we are looking at uncovering the myths and finding the truth, as always, with employment law. Remember, stay legal.